Today's topic for my nurses is how to get your shift together. Yes, you heard me, get your shift together. So, I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 tips on how to have a more successful shift of getting organized before you start your day. Okay? Agreed. All right. So, first off, so number one, our first tip is to start your shift off right. Guess what? You should be on time. I'm a hypocrite saying that because I'm almost always more late than I am on time. But I have not always been like that, but I have to be honest. That's me. But it is best to start your shift on time because number one, people will like you better when you showing up on time. Two, you have enough time to adequately finish your shift, to start and finish your shift. Number three, the third reason you should be on time, because you're supposed to. That's your job as a nurse, any job you're at, we should be on time. We have a specific time. We know this time. We signed up for that time. We should be able to be there on time, right? Okay. So let me tell you the advantages of being on time. Number two, you get report. You can ask all the questions that you want, right? And even though some people do get mad, when you start asking questions, but oh well, that's what report is. If you got questions about what's going on, what happened before, or what was followed up on and taken care of, what you need to do, be on time so you have enough time to have that conversation. Another thing is you have to count your narcotics. That's very important. Between every shift, two nurses are counting the narcotics, because if you signing off, you snatch those keys and something's missing, guess what? You're responsible once you take those keys to that medication cart. And another part of this, number three, you want to be able to do your rounds. I don't know how often nurses still do this, but when I started nursing, that was something that they really did teach us and instilled in us as a nurse, is to make sure you're doing your rounds. And I learned also, working in different settings, you do your rounds, you want to check and see who's on the floor. You want to check and see who's still breathing, who's hurt, who's not there, who's missing. It's almost like when you're coming home to your family and one of your kids isn't home or something like that, or something's going on. That's how you kind of have to think about it. So when you're taking responsibility for adults in your workplace, you need to know everywhere your residents are. You need to know that they're safe, because guess what? If you don't know, or if you haven't checked on your resident that or patient, that falls on you. You should have checked on that person. You should have made sure everybody was available, accounted for. If they're out on a doctor's appointment, if they're out with the family, you should know that. So if you're on time for work, guess what? Once you do your rounds, you got enough time to ask that previous nurse, okay, where's so and so? You didn't mention this, that, or the other. So that's why that's so important. Now, so first tip, be on time. Two, get report and count your narcotics. Number three, do your rounds. Now, number four, depending on the time or the shift that you're working, here are a few different things you can do in the beginning part of your shift. So one thing is, you can follow up with maybe calls to the physician. You can follow up to check faxes or medications with the pharmacy to see what came in, what's gonna come in, if you need a new script for a medication or something like that. It's also a good time to get your vitals done. Some facilities, they actually do have the CNA staff that is able to assist you with getting vitals, and sometimes they don't. Or some nurses don't want the CNAs to get their vitals. They actually prefer to do it themselves. So that's a good thing to do, especially if you don't know what's going on in your unit. And since the pandemic, most of us at most facilities, we're doing vitals either every shift, at least once a shift, or once a day. But there are people who require maybe a blood pressure pulse taken, or their pulse ox to find out their oxygen level, if they're on oxygen or something else that may be going on. But it's a good time to get those things done while you're ahead, because now you have time to do it. Also, you can check your blood sugars. I like to do that. Now, there's certain things that I think in the nursing world, we kind of surround our day around meals, especially first and second shift. Obviously, on night shift, they don't have a meal, but the bigger med pass is during the day and sometimes the evening on second shift. So, another important thing is getting things done that you can't do in the dining room or while a patient is eating, like your eye drops, nasal sprays, inhalers, eardrops, and injections. Things like that need to be done prior to a patient being in a public area um, where people can see what you're doing. You have to let your patient have their dignity. Dignity is everything, right? Um, so that's important. So that kind of helps you, regardless if you know these patients or not. These simple steps will help you each time you go somewhere. And I love, well, I can't say I just love, but I go by this, and it does help me because I do a lot of agency nursing. So I'm not always familiar with patients. So it's also important when you're on time, guess what? You can ask this about the patient. Number 5. How do they take their medications? Do they take their medications whole? Do they take them crushed? Is it whole in applesauce? Do they prefer pudding? Do they have to have it in a drink? Do they have to have it with their meals? You know, you can also ask, is this patient particular? Do they want their meds at a certain time? So these are great questions to find out if you don't know the person, because it makes your med pass easier. All right. Um, One last, no, it's not the last thing. You also need to know if they have a G tube. Even if they have a G tube or PEG tube, you need to know, hey, are they taking their meds crushed? Are they NPO? Do they have pleasure fees? These are important things to know about your patients when you're dealing with them. Now, granted, sometimes you can ask your patients about what they prefer, what times they want their meds, things like that. But it is kind of nice if you have an idea and a head start, because some patients are kind of rude. They have no tolerance for people who do not know what they're doing, and they can smell it. Okay. I'm trying to think. There was something else I wanted to tell you. Oh, make sure your medication cart is stocked. Make sure you have the lancets you need, syringes, alcohol wipes, bleach wipes. Make sure you have a glucometer. Make sure you have the vital equipment you may need. Those are like the basic necessities you want to make sure you have. Make sure you got your Tylenol, aspirins, your vitamins. If you have, like, those are typically stock meds. So make sure that you have the ones that you know you're going to use a lot of. Tylenol, or acetaminophen. Sorry, Tylenol is a brand, but acetaminophen, your aspirins, your vitamins, multivitamin, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, things like that. Make sure it's available. Your Colace. What else is pretty popular that we always use is a PRN, Miralax. That's an over the counter now. So just making sure you have what you need. So to have a good shift, you want to be prepared. So these tips are really great for anyone who wants to do temp agency work, or if you're starting a new job. Find out as much as you can about that each individual patient's normal routine. And again, me personally, I like to start with the patient that takes their meds whole. If I'm new to a facility, I start with them because it's easier and less time consuming. But sometimes you do get a patient who might have like 20 pills and they take them one by one. I've had that. But it's a lot easier to still give them meds as well. But then you have patients who take their medications crushed. Like I said, you also need to know, what do they take their meds in a liquid, or do they take it in their food, like a pudding, applesauce consistency or substance or something, or do they want it like in an Ensure Med Pass, one of those high calorie protein drinks? But those are just simple steps that you can do to make your day easier. Shall I repeat? 1, be on time. 2, get report and count your narcotics. And 3, do your rounds. Check on your patients, make sure they're safe and okay. 4, depending on your shift, you want to catch up or do some things in your short period of free time, which is follow up on faxes, making phone calls, contacting the doctor, the pharmacy, families, things of that nature, maybe for follow up appointments. Get your vitals done, get your blood sugars done, and stock your cart. Number 5, last but not least, know how your patients take their medications. Either start with the patients that are whole, patients that are taking them crushed, or if they have a G-tube. Another thing that I did forget to mention, don't forget about your nebulizer treatments. Those are very important. They are best and most effective if you give them before a resident or patient eats. So you want to know who has a nebulizer treatment so you can get those started as well. So those are a few of my tips, and I hope you enjoyed it. So again, my name is LaKyla Tellis, registered nurse, owner of Iconic Voice, and founder of Iconic Nurse Network Outreach. So I'm going to keep posting different tips when I come up with new ideas. And if you have any questions or suggestions of things that you would like to see, please let me know. Reach out to Nurse Tellis and I will create a video and send information about that, okay? So don't forget, follow me on Facebook at LaKyla Speaks. Follow me on Instagram at iconic_voice, and follow my nonprofit, Iconic_Nurse Network, okay? And if you haven't done so already, like and subscribe to my YouTube page, Iconic Voice, and also don't forget to share, okay? So I hope you have a great one, and I hope this was helpful to you. Thanks for watching.